Hello, everyone. This is Reyes Ramirez. Welcome to Houston Eyes Silver Screens, a reading series curated by me, but sponsored, as you saw, by Houston Arts Alliance and Poets and Writers. As always, I'm excited to present to you an amazing lineup of writers, uh, particularly from Houston, Texas, because I really do believe that Houston just has like an amazing literary scene, amazing writers, and so I'm proud to at least feature, however small percentage of this is of the talent that lives in this city. Um, and so, just to kind of give you an idea, if you haven't been here, if you haven't attended this reading before, what this is it's a pop culture inspired reading series in terms of how writers of color are interpreting pop culture in contemporary America, and how it influences people of color, how people of color kind of filter or process these things. And so the first in the series was a reading focused on films slash TV, and that was great. So if you haven't seen that, you're more than welcome to go back and visit that one. The second one was video games, and that one was really fun, an interesting challenge for me as an organizer. And then the third tonight is music, and so they're just so you know you're at the right place. So if you want info and bios on the readers tonight, you're more than welcome to go to reyesviramirez.com/Hess. There you'll find all the bios, all the info that you need, and the archived readings of all the other the readings I just mentioned. And again, the great thing about this series, that at least I'm proud of, is that there's transcripts, or rather captioned subtitles in English and Spanish. Again, just because the talent is so great and robust in Houston that it should be accessible as much as possible. So there's still room to grow, but I hope that's a good start for what can be done in the digital realm. And so tonight we have some really great readers. We have a series featuring Miranda Ramirez, Alia Labonte, and Jose Eduardo Sanchez. Um, and so we're going to get started. Let me bring her on. So we're going to get started tonight with Miranda. How's it going?
It's going okay. How are you? Uh,
I'm good. I'm good. All things considered, yeah, everything's just fine. And then, so before we get you to start reading, can you talk a little bit about maybe, I guess, what inspired this story, or at least the music that's in the story?
for sure. What inspired this story was over the summer, a group of my friends and I, we like to send each other writing challenges, and we're kind of jerks about it. We try and make it intentionally difficult for the other person. And this one came from my good friend of mine, Christopher Flacus. And I had to write a psychological thriller. I had to heavily involve music, and it had to deal with grief. And I think this story hits all of those markers. The music is from my childhood and from like eclectic tastes that I've kind of developed because I was a band nerd at one point. So I loved like Dixieland jazz and some like Southern blues kind of stuff. And then, of course, that transition into folk. So a lot of that comes up in this story. Um, it's kind of like a linchpin device in the story, the music is.
Awesome, and I think that's what I was drawn to when you sent that to me. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna get off, give you the stage, so to speak, and everyone again remember to tip your readers. Info below. So, see you in a minute.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to set myself a little stopwatch myself so that I don't go over. Okay, so this piece, I'm going to give you a little bit of a preface because it is an excerpt from a novella. Um, and I'll do that by going back up to the top. So it is set in Texas, in a small coastal community near Corpus Christi. And okay, so what you need to know is that there is a woman named Lucy who has recently lost her husband of 27 years. They met in college, and music is very important to their marriage. She was the high school band director. He was a chemistry teacher. It was kind of like the binding tie or the glue of their marriage. It was the way they coped, shared, evolved together. And the husband, Clark, died suddenly, leaving his very grief-stricken wife to run their newly acquired hobby business, which was a bar. Allison, Lucy's sister, doesn't really approve of this choice. Over the next few weeks, I threw all my energy into the bar. Our little dream, much to Allison's chagrin, it was the last part of my old life that felt alive. An escape from the standing memorial that our house had become. In keeping with the historic vibe of the location, we opted for an old, archaic-looking iron padlock on the front door. Clark had argued with the security guy about not posting our little ADT sign in the window. What, and ruin this aesthetic? He joked, but I knew he was serious. The guy was right, though. The sign would likely have deterred the more hardened Magnolia Beach criminals. As I walked up in the early hues of the morning light, I could hear the gulls crying and the water splashing. Lifting the padlock, I measured its weight. It felt heavy in my hand, solid. I had parked the Subaru round back near our loading dock door. I didn't remember that the dock door couldn't open from outside the bar, that I had to go around and open it from inside. So I was enjoying the air. It was crisp. Like we get on the coast in Texas, not quite chill, just crisp and salty with a soft breeze coming off the water. It lifted my frizzing flyaway hairs, and my own shadow fell through the glass of the door and onto the wood floor of the bar. I slid the key into the padlock, then pulled the chain free from the doors. They swung in heavily with a groan, stopping with a heavy clunk against the tall wooden frame. I could feel the pens and needles run up my arms and down my neck. It had been a while since I'd been inside the place. There was a thin layer of dust coating every surface. Sunlight streamed in from the docks, illuminating the dust in the air, dust that I'd just kicked up. Wiping my nose, I pulled the hair tie from my wrist, and I wrapped my hair, mostly gray these days, into a big flopping bun on the crown of my head. Clark called this my getting down to business look. He was right. I intended to get things done that day. Starting with the floors, I headed for the broom in the back hall. Through the swinging door to the right of the bar, this space was going to be a kitchen. Nothing complicated, burgers, fries, maybe Taco Tuesday. When I walked through the door, I discovered that it was pitch black and eerily quiet. I couldn't hear the doors, the docks, or the street. Like a thick black curtain had descended, like I stepped into a void. I realized that I'd never been inside this building alone. I'd always come with Clark or the realtor, some contractor, never really alone. I didn't like the feeling, but I figured I should get used to it. I took out my cell for the light as I explored my way back to the breaker box. Upon reaching the rusted and frightening looking switches, I stretched to the fullest of my 5'3" height to flip the rusty hinge lock open. Then I just had to push the slides up to position. I tried to slide them all at once, but they were stuck, and the arthritis in my hands screamed with little effort. Cursing, I tried again, pushing each of the three grubby things up with the butt of my palm. When they slid to, I could feel the electricity glide beneath them, raising the tiny hairs on my arm. I'd always been a bit sensitive to that sort of thing. I stayed still, listening for that little Frankenstein's castle twang that's given off by the industrial light bulbs we favored in our decor. I love that sound. With that final little pop, the dark leapt away, and the place changed into something warm. The jukebox flaring to life in all its neon glory and started playing at random. I felt at home. Returning through that swinging door, broom in hand, I was greeted by the lights of the juke's spinning discs as they twirled, reflecting throughout the place like a big disco ball. As if summoned, I strode to where it sat on the rear wall of the front room across from the big doors. I punched in that little 4-digit code to utilize management mode, then selected the playlist, Mixtapes 1983. Clark had given me the jukebox. Man was a great gift giver. He'd even programmed our favorite mixtapes into its digital playlist. I might have to clean and run this place alone, but at least I had good tunes. Our tunes. Okay, sorry, I'm going to break forward a little bit. So she's cleaning the place up, getting it ready to open, and reminiscing about her husband. She gets overheated, and she just really needs to sit down for a bit. Cooling off a minute, I look around what was supposed to be Clark's office. There was a poster from the high school robotics team the year they made it into the state finals. Clark's old suitcase record player and 50 or so of his favorite vinyl records. He promised me they were doubles when I saw him lugging them down the stairs in milk crates. On the wall behind his desk chair was his signed copy of Van Morrison's Moondance, framed, hanging on the back wall. Gazing at that faded album cover, I could just barely hear the music. These dreams of you, so real, so true. I think that was the 7th track on Moondance. It took me a minute to realize it was coming from the jukebox and not just my imagination. I laughed out loud at the odds. So she gets a little bit lost here in the space that was curated by her husband, because it's filled with all of his favorite little things. And she's supposed to be in there unpacking the PC and setting up like the software for the bar, but she just kind of dazes off in this office space. I must have lost track of time in the Clark cave. The glare from the front windows was level with my eyes, making it difficult to see when I walked back out. I had planned to go over to the jukebox and turn it off for the night, but that old tune was still rolling, so I went and pulled a glass from the bar. The only thing on the shelf was our bottle of celebratory yellow rose. I grabbed it and poured. "Exquisite crystal for exquisite whiskey," I said in my best goofy Clark impersonation. I checked to see if the ice machine had produced anything yet. Still nothing, so I had to pour it neat. I walked around to the leather top stool and had a seat. I gazed up at Clark's photo, hung above the register, and drank my whiskey. There were steps on the hardwood behind me, making me turn toward the open doorway. A young man stood there, maybe 23, with dark hair and pale skin. He was in trunks and an Islanders t-shirt. He wore the same reef sandals that sat by my back door, worn near bare by the soles of Clark's feet. He looked sort of like a whitewashed version of Clark. He even had glasses. I watched him, but not closely, as he came up and sat on the stool next to mine. "I love this old tune," he said, smiling. "Me too," I nodded. He looked around for a server. "We're not open just yet," I said. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard the music and saw you sitting here all alone," he said. "No worries. Come back Friday. Have a beer on the house." I tried to smile for him. "Really?" he asked. "Yeah, if you're old enough," I joked. That had him laughing. "I'll bring my buddies then." There was a slight twang to his voice. "All right, sounds good." The juke hopped to the next track as his back retreated through the doorway onto the boardwalk. I closed the door behind him and shut off the music and locked the place down. It looked like rain, and the air was starting to chill. I got goosebumps when I dropped the padlock back into its place. With the drink in my belly and the soreness in my back, I fell asleep quickly on our old leather couch back at the house. I woke up stiff and smelling of sweat around midnight. I looked at the television and realized it was another of Clark's favorites being featured on Behind the Music. Bob Dylan. "Ain't no use in one why, babe." Ugh, I was beat, even stiffer than before. I sat down on the couch and just passed out. I turned the TV off. Now I should have gone to bed, but instead I trudged to our bathroom. My toes made little scuffing noises across the ancient hardwood floors because I didn't pick them up. It was the only sound in the house I could hear. But then I heard the magnolia branches rubbing on the windows. My head was throbbing and I wanted a hot bath. I went into our master bath, filled the tub. I turned the water to near scalding, filling the room with a steamy fog. It grew so thick by the time I climbed into the big clawfoot, there was no reflection in the mirror. I sank low, keeping my nose barely above the waterline, blowing ripples across the surface like some lurking sea monster. My toes floating at the opposite end seemed miles away. Dipping deeper, my ears filled with water, depriving my brain of all sensory details beyond this tiny perimeter. I closed my eyes trying to relax, but of course, at the house, I can't help but envision Clark. I could bring him back. I could force him to life if I just kept my eyes clenched tight. I could almost feel him sitting on that small wooden stool right beside the tub, talking about the music, fiddling with my tiny FM radio, his long and callous fingers reaching out to tune the knobs. There was sudden clang as if he'd kneed the side of the tub. The sound reverberated, shaking me. I raised my head to the empty room. It must have been my own knee. I'm not sure how long I'd been sitting there, but the water had suddenly turned gold. I gotta go, but my friend can stick around. Take a load off Fanny. The band playing on the FM. I don't even remember turning it on or grabbing this towel. It's sitting here on the stool, climbing into our bed, and I pulled the blankets I'd refused to change up to my chin and rolled inward toward Clark's empty spot. Well, we did it. Easy street now, right, babe? I said out loud. Right. Claro, baby. Clark's memory twanged back at me. I closed my eyes before reality could take him away again. Okay, we're going to do another leap here. So she gets the bar up and running. It's opening night, and the same guy that had walked in before, his name's Matt, has now become a regular, showing up all the time. And Lucy's sister Allison has been helping her and is kind of fed up with Lucy's poor decision making. It was a Thursday, and Allison had dropped by to help me out for the evening. Along with the regulars, we were starting to bring in the spring tourists. Not that there were many of those, but still, it was too much for me alone. We had a busy night, slammed really. There'd been some type of conference or talk at the university, and the Airbnbs and boutique hotels were full. It was closing in on midnight, and I just announced last call, so most of the patrons had cleared out. I was sitting at the bar with two of the fellows from the docks. Allison was counting the till while I bussed tables. I overheard her ask Matt to close out. He turned to the guy next to him, then offered, and paid for the other guy's tab. Just 2 beers. No more than $10 with a decent tip, but still. I nodded to myself, thinking of all the strangers whose tabs Clark had paid during our bar hopping days. Allison gave him back his card, and the dock guys left. I shut the big doors behind them. Lucy, you need to get some help, Allison sighed, counting down what had been my till. I mean, hire someone. Yeah, probably, I said, gesturing towards Matt's back. Ignoring my unspoken demand for professionalism, she just rolled her eyes. Have you even taken a deposit to the bank this month? She questioned. I leaned my broom against the bar and grabbed a towel, starting to wipe down tables. Making direct eye contact, I furrowed my brows at her. So you haven't then, she stated flatly. I sighed audibly. Allison kept counting, and Matt slurped his beer and pretended to be looking at his phone. I walked to the booth while calling back over my shoulder. Nope, sure haven't. Well, you can't live off your savings forever, she said. Allison. And then I mouthed, what the fuck? And thrust my hands towards Matt. The jukebox was still blaring, so I walked over to turn it down some. One of our older tracks was playing. A Marty Wilde song. See, I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad boy. I can't keep doing this every weekend. She ignored me again. Then don't, I shouted at her. She stuffed the cash and the receipts in the little zip pouch and turned the key. She knew I had to leave cash in the till, so she sealed the bag to force me to take it to the bank. Matt set his empty glass on the bar, and Allison snatched it up. I walked back over to the bar to deal with her. She tossed the bag at me, forcing me to drop my towel. Turning to Matt, she said, can't you see we're closed? Allison, hey, I snapped at her. But she was already grabbing her coat. I've been telling you for weeks now, Lucy. I'm done. Love you. Bye. She called over her shoulder. Without cause, the broom I'd leaned suddenly slammed to the floor, rattling as loudly as it hit the hardwood with a smack. Allison shook her keys to get my attention, telling me to lock up for the night. Then she turned and walked out the front doors, leaving me to clean up alone. I'm sure the incredulity was all over my face, because the very next moment, Matt just burst out laughing. Boy, she told you, he said. Shut up, I said with a smile. You know, Luce, I could use a part-time gig if you're hiring, he said. Oh, yeah? I know you have plenty of time in front of the bar, but do you have any experience behind it? I said, expecting a no. He hesitated. A little. Nothing worth referencing. I gave him a once-over. All right, kid, I'll give you a go. Be here at 4 p.m. tomorrow so I can show you the ropes. Matt was a quick study, and he already knew more cocktails than both me and Allison put together. Between the three of us, it was going all right. But after a few months, Allison won it out altogether. and we had enough budget to hire 2 waitresses to replace her, Amelia and Natasha, Natty for short. Which was great because when I could keep Matt behind the bar with me or let myself take a night off, though I rarely did, I didn't really like going out alone, and the house still reminded me daily of what it was missing. So much so that I even snuck some of Clark's things back down from the storage loft in the garage. A pair of his glasses, his favorite knit hat, a half-empty bottle of his cologne. I hung a sweatshirt up beside mine in the front hall. Allison really wouldn't approve. She'd caught me with the unwashed sheets, walking into my bedroom, uninvited. Gave me this extensive lecture about mental health. She even mentioned dating. Hasn't even been a year since Clark died, and she wants me to move on. I told her she was nuts and get out of my house. It might be why she quit helping me with the bar. On Saturday afternoon, I decided I would take a night off, but not before dropping by to snag the deposit. Allison had been right about that much at least. I'd maxed out the remodeling funds and was using my savings to pay the bills. Luckily, the bar was doing great and was more than keeping itself and me afloat. I think Clark would be proud of that. When I get to the bar, it's just getting busy. The juke is blaring some contemporary pop one of the girls brought in. I encouraged all the employees to bring in their favorite mix. Everybody gets a turn. Makes for good vibes, happy employees. Shoot me, please, Matt said as I step up to the bar. Not a fan? I laugh at him. Not even slightly. This is all they play at the bar on campus. He sounded annoyed. There's a bar on campus? I asked. Oh, well, yeah, but it's super lame, he said. Here for the deposit? He handed me the bag. Thanks, Matt. Natty came up to turn in an order. Hey, Effie. Natty, how's it going? Week 2 and all? I asked. She's a natural, Matt exclaimed. She smiled at him and waved her hand dismissively before taking her bucket of Michelob. Good. Great, I said. I couldn't help but notice that Matt watched her retreat all the way back to the big top. By the windows. She was a pretty girl, close to his age. I get it, I said. What was that? He asked distractedly. Good night, Matt. Remember, you're practically management. In the background, the juke flips to one I know, but not really like. And she runs through her days with a smile on her face. And she runs and she waits and I wait. I hated it, found it disturbing as hell, but Clark loved it. And it captured a bit of that Texas dark side that he was into. That was for sure. Track had decent licks for newer stuff, and I knew the band was from Texas, but I shook my head, wondering what playlist that tune was on. Just hearing it gave me chills. It had to be 90 degrees outside. September was rough. I didn't take the anniversary of Clark's death well. Took the whole week off from the bar, too. Pretty much ate Bluebell and cried. Switched to chicharrones when my belly couldn't handle any more dairy, and stayed away from the liquor cabinet. And silenced my phone. Too many relatives wanting to just check in on me. And we are at time. So sorry I couldn't finish that for you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think that's how I also introduce like my fancy things where I go fancy glass for fancy blah.
Right.
Scene. So thank you so much for your reading. See you next time.
Thank you.
All right, so up next is me. So I'm gonna do a reading of some poems. In the past, I've usually done criticisms or essays, but this time I'll do some poetry based on music. So the first poem I'm gonna read is inspired by Lydia Mendoza, who was a really, really great musician. If you haven't checked out her music, check it out. Oh, let me put my info. There you go. Follow me on Instagram if you don't already. But Lydia Mendoza, she is actually a Houstonian, Mexican-American singer in, I believe, like she got her start in the like 1940s or so. And and she would sing really, really beautiful ballads and on her guitar, classics and songs she wrote that are now considered classics. Um, and so I wrote a poem inspired by her music, and her life. And so here we go. This poem, it's a series of poems. It's called La Alondra de la Frontera. That was her nickname, the Lark of the Border. 1. I lay down in a park. A wanderer must constantly search for themselves or become a victim of circumstance. I hear the birds sing to each other on the branches of dying trees. I also heard this in the running of water, from the etches in bathroom stalls, the stretch of my father's smile, the smoke from the flame of a match, and the scratching pills do against the walls of their bottle, from my reflection every night before work. A hair falls from my head and into the vast grass. 2. In a room out of the thousand she will play in her life, Lydia Mendoza picks up a guitar and strums 12 strings with her eyes closed, dizzy with love and reverberation. She wears a huipil and skirt the color of bright reds, greens, yellows, oranges, blues, and white, but her songs will be of dark hearts, dark doves, dark betrayal, dark tangos, dark death, dark ojos, bad men, bad lives, bad jealousy, cruel fates, and cruel, bad, dark love. The music from her guitar will resonate through the air as though bleeding to death. Listen and feel the sun setting in your heart. 3. Imagine yourself anywhere. How long do you get to feel at peace in one place before its pieces remind you that nothing lasts? The water in a jug, the couples sitting together, the story in the book in your hand, the food on a plate, the cleanliness of a floor, the song playing right now, the one sun above you, each strand of grass holding me up in their prayer to the sky. Wandering is simply one life entering another, the grackles sing to their hungry chicks. 4. I've lost jobs, friends, lovers, parents. The first feeling you get after is how long you have yourself before time claims that too. La Alondra picked up a guitar at 12 years old and never stopped. How does one sing for 79 years? How does one dedicate their life to wander from place to place for so long, planting trees of dark beauty for other songbirds to nest in? I know no music. Lydia Mendoza, if I give you my voice, will you teach me to sing? 5. Even a good song knows it must end. Even a bad life must finish its cycle. La Alondra de la Frontera understood this with each piece that she sang as though almost breaking into tears or laughter. What is a song other than a life? If a song is a life and a life is a song, then how many songs can one sing in a life? How many lives can one live in a song? Can a song exist to respond to others? Can a song be built on the foundations of another? Love must be repaid with love, or else it is all a lie. The soaring birds warble down at those who walk. 6. Imagine walking into a dark room with the spotlight fixated on a chair upon the stage, sitting down, drinking beer fast enough to feel its ice coldness settle in your stomach, and hear La Alondra de la Frontera strum her guitar, whose vibrations say, tell me your sadness, and give me your berrinches, your lágrimas, your grief, your pecados, your fears, your pains, your tristezas, so that we may sing them together. 7. A songbird has no purpose but to sing. Anything else is in service to the song. Eating, flying north or south, laying an egg and hatching it, feeding hatchlings and teaching them to fly, to be songbirds themselves. Each blade of grass stands in its own length. Each tree its own number of branches. No two songbirds sound alike. So that's that one. This next poem it's another series of poems called The Fabulous Wondrous Outfits of the Fabulous Wonder Twins. And so just to set up that, the Fabulous Wonder Twins were these club kids in New York. And so they were very high fashion, but like club fashion in the 90s. And so they're kind of part of the zeitgeist. And it's funny because if you do research on them, they're immigrants from El Salvador. But they show up in so many like music videos and like movies from the 90s. They're always just there for like a few seconds, but they're there if you look for them. And I always thought that was poetic, and how, like, the history of marginalized peoples is kind of marginalized to the edges, but it's there. It's there if you look for it, and that's kind of part of the history, uh, particularly, I guess, of El Salvador, um, and all that good stuff. And so I'm going to say the names of the music videos and the time, so you can rewind or you can pause this video whenever, and you can find them if you look. And so, the Fabulous Wondrous Outfits of the Fabulous Wonder Twins. Everlasting Love, Gloria Estefan, 1994, 2 minutes and 43 seconds. Plumes of lilac paradise birds form a fist, and the equator echoes purple. Unclaimed oceans of lavender gyre once, twice, 3 times, and a bamboo trunk sprouts before a mirror. In some city, buttercream cars shiver from drops of violet rain. In a burning village far away, a newly born widow says, "May every petunia blossom my petunia portrait, so those lost in fields will never be alone." Vertigogo, Combustible Edison, 1995, 45 seconds. Everything has a twin, linked by invisible umbilical cords, and everything must meet its twin before completion. Old hands with veins full of blue blood trace the lightning blue rivers on a once lost map. A brown child's silver bright eyes marvel in the chrome light, watching their first cartoon. The knife-colored scales of a catfish break a mud water surface and rhinestone under a southern sun. What is to be said of what must be overcome? The machine of your nation's history can grind and stall, and the golden sweetness of mantequilla clouds and sunlight replaced by ink smoke metastasizing from a burning car. But consider a wondrous blue nimbus, poofy and hair-like, spreading down 2 braids hanging like constant tears. It rests on a head attached to a body wearing this dress, equally blue but striped white, the skirt hoops and hoops. Blue-white striped hoops upon hoops, each diameter vaster than the last, a sonic boom of fabulous blue in reverse so loud I cannot hear the limitations of any one body. Here, it is happening twice. Imagine fulfilling your completion twice every living day. If It Makes You Happy, Sheryl Crow, 1996, 2 minutes and 2 seconds. 2 obsidian statues pose during a dull gold dusk. They mimic one another about 2 rhino horns apart. Leaning sideways, hand on hip, arm teapot stretched, they both look forward, not at each other, and only once will their heads turn to face their one face at each other for as long as 2 guitar strums, then back. Their one life ends as the dull gold dust darkens. It's one of many lives across the horizon, smoke filling an aquarium. The 2 obsidian statues bleed out a desperate night through their skin and become one memorial for all sleep. I Will Survive, the Diana Ross cover, 1996, 1 minute and 36 seconds. What grief in this home has been made again? The school is empty, the blackboard's clean, the art and museums alone, and the dozing guards nowhere to be found. Supermarket shelves bereft, and their sickly lights reveal nada. A government fails, and its citizens now all orphans. A burning anthill curdles Necropolis Gray and topples by this summer's ends. I once left behind my one body in a bed of sweat and saw myself in open-eyed awe. I left behind my one home and saw the lights on, but no phantasmagoric splendor of life. I leapt into the one sky, looking down at an earth at the tops of heads, pastel polka dots roaming the fuchsia spandex of the purple moon's glow on an evening earth. Who does not wish this spotted world's shoulders wrapped in a coat? Why not make this coat's color the bright pink of mammalian birth? Why not endow this coat's skin with the fur of an alien animal? Why not wear it out to a club and dance in celebration of the air, the water, the breathing and drinking of joy through one mouth? Why not? Why not? Why not? And so that concludes that one. And so that concludes my reading of some other poems. Obviously, you can check out on music, on my website. But again, you can find that all on reyesvidamudas.com/Hess. And so that concludes my portion. Up next, we have Aaliyah. Let me bring her on. Yo.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's all right. Let me put a headset there. How's that?
Perfect. I think so. So I just want to ask, yeah, like, so could you give a? Well, I guess you're going to give some pretty good intro to your work. So I just want to ask, have you listened to any albums or anything this year? Have you been revisiting any music lately that you like?
So the work that I'm gonna reference is more like the last three, but this spring I kind of lived off of Maraba's Black Truck. It's a song. Um, it's the spring was difficult, I should say. And also, what part of what's the other one? Bet. Her song Bet. I kind of like floated on that. Also, FKA Twigs, which respect to Anthony Sutton, who sang her praises before I did. And Anthony was right about everything, and I wrote a lot of my final manuscript on that. And, cried ugly.
Of course. I mean, how could you
Being
not?
like,
It's
she
so
gets
good.
it. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm gonna give you the platform. Everyone, again, tip your readers. Info below, and take it away.
So I tried to link and talk about some of the songs because they may not be common knowledge. Probably you know Shahjaryan's big hits, right? But if you don't, he's a classical musician, a classical Persian musician, um, and yeah. So I'm going to read a little intro about that, and then I'm going to go into poems. Start timer. For how long? In 2010, Mohammad Reza Shahjaryan and the Shah Naz Ensemble played University of Houston's Cullen Hall. My father brought my siblings and I remember walking down the aisle of the Dark Theater. We grew up attending Nowruz festivals where someone was playing the santur or tambak, it's a goblet drum. As the ensemble's strings and percussions filled the music hall, I remember feeling the sadness and grief and unhomedness. The trips home people sitting around me didn't take in time or would never be able to make. All of this combined with a sensory fire in my brain. Dickinson says that amazing art or amazing poetry takes the top of our head off. And I know that's trite and it's something that we say, but it's true. It's this weird, like surreal mix of ecstatic and horror, but horror in a good way, more like the sublime. And it was that feeling sitting in the auditorium. I'd never, yeah. So I'm a native Texan. Like my father, I was born in a country's border town and moved up to East Texas, moved up. We were, in first grade. My father left Iran before the revolution. He's not a Shah Iranian. We're not from the capital. If you know a lot of Persian people, you know that, yeah, a huge mass left after the revolution or right before the revolution after the Shah was overthrown. Um, and Joey Castro talks about how you can break in the other Latinate. They talk about how there are people that leave a country because they have their political reasons, and there are people that leave for opportunity, and how they're kind of broken into different classes. And the people that leave for opportunity don't usually write the stories. And I think Reyes probably has thoughts on this too, and how there's kind of like a class difference. And a difference in who gets to tell the narrative. But my dad is not a Shah Iranian. Yeah, and we're not from the capital. So my father's alive because he was here instead of Iran. A whole generation of his peers died in the Iran-Iraq War, like literally a whole generation of people. And there's a video of Mohammad Reza Shahjaryan singing at a earthquake benefit. There's like a town in the south of Iran called Bam, and it had like this devastating earthquake, and he's singing at the earthquake benefit, and he's singing this song called Morge Sahar, which means like bird of dawn, or nightingale of dawn. And the song is older than him. It's written like the early 20th century, and it has political connotations and other things. And some of the lyrics are like, morning bird, dawn bird, please start mourning, further deepen, renew my pain, break this cage and overturn it. Flightless nightingale, get out of the cage, sing humanity's song of freedom. From the breath of the masses, fill the open earth with fire. And I think a lot, and when I watch the video of Shajarian singing this song at the benefit concert, I think about how the people in the crowd are crying, they're weeping, and they're my father's age. And I think about how this is a song that, you know, I think about the people that aren't sitting around them. I remember my dad watching the Gulf War. I was on the news. I was very, 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 very young. We were at the border apartments. That's what they were called in Bronzeville. And I remember the TV images, and I didn't know what they were, but I can replay the memory. And as an adult, I was like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, something like this. And as an adult, I can replay the screen and see my dad's body and put it together and know what was happening and remember his posture. And like, yeah, you can get out, but you carry certain things with you, right? War can drive people out of countries, and if we think about the promise of Morge Sahar, we have a song that supersedes death, suffering, but it's a song, right? Poetry and music are unique because they are embodied. They're measured in feet, in beats. The shape of us singing are the sounds of air passing through our sinuses, throats, mouths, and the shapes of those cavities. I've spent the last 3 years listening to this, and then also Kelsey Lou's Due West and Shades of Blue. You know, in the poems I'm going to retouch on this. A big flood hit our city, right? It was a natural disaster. It was catastrophic. And I think what was so upsetting about it was that it's the same thing as war. You know, you're driven away by people who make bad decisions, and you're exiled. You lose your stability. And I think that's what in the beginning was so upsetting about it. And, you know, my father's house is flooded. And, you know, how do you keep someone safe? You can't keep someone safe. They put a permit on the land. They allowed someone to build right by a bayou, right? And it started kind of mixing in my brain. And then during this time, I started having hard conversations with my family about who I am. And I had to start reconsidering my role in my family, and dealing with the fear of, you know, what will I have to leave? Will I leave? What will I lose? And I started returning over the idea of exile too. And it's almost like it's an inherited thing that some of us keep. You know, I have parents that my father's overtly diasporic, you know, and my mom is kind of too. I'm mixed, by the way. But, you know, she lives a long way away from her family too. So let's go to the poems. But if you listen to like Shades of Blue, you have the singer who comes from a Jehovah's Witness family, and she's singing, you know, I'm not over you. I'm over, let's see. You're like the blazing fire in the Sahara on a wind-filled night, moving in all directions. I'm not over you, but I'm over feeling shades of blue. I'm not over you. I'm over feeling shades of blue, afraid I'm going mad, afraid I've lost my edge, afraid I made a big mistake, but I knew it. And in this song and in Due West, Kelsey kind of continues that idea of exile, which makes sense for her when I think of her life in the work. She's also got beautiful strings, and strings have the vibrato of, Shajarian's voice and the emotiveness and the wateriness, and it's just phenomenal. So I recommend them. Okay. This is Hydroelectric Complex, Shingles Spring, 2017. Civilization. We live as a subdivision of pools continuously overflowed by rains, bayous, creeks, the sea. That year began with a travel ban. People, many other Iranians, found themselves walled off from home, from families, and even children, from coolers holding their new hearts to be. I kept the TV on. I cried. Twice I told the woman I'd begun dating goodbye. When an itchy constellation of pain started spotting my side, I thought, chiggers. I was teaching nature writing in the woods. I learned all water conducts. Some bodies mediate more than others. I damned myself powerful, conciliatory, until electrified. I felt the nerves crackling from my spine around to my right side. Civilization tosses a multi-bulbed floor lamp into a pool. Walking is how I define the body. This is a dam is a form of failed diplomacy. In my father's house, floods took the kitchen. Still, he welcomes you to any of the other rooms. Hospitality lives inside of us. Overseas, a cancer eats my uncle's bones. He doesn't know what his body grows. No voice but pain speaks to the host. My aunt, nieces, and nephews hope for cancer drugs in Iran. This is what sanctions means. Here, someone sanctioned. A sale of a floodplain. Barker's Dam could not protect these families downstream. In this development, who among us now would not pray against rain? Or not ask that a loved one can board a plane? We are all the person we become. Once knowing, water fills someone's room. Come in, see, all this dry wall's new. I stand here painting small squares in likable shades of blue. The song has, if you're family, you might want to, This song's called Drowning in the Atrium of This Church I Struggle to Worship. I should have let FEMA pay for this room. Dragging my suitcase down the hotel's hall, I walk next to her, saying again, baby, I am going to love you. But next to the bed, a burgundy armchair, when I sit, I feel alone, myself in cold water soon. Facing the window, I watch the sun sink. Behind a stage of pine trees, dusk pours over the thin forest. The parking lot drifts through the window and into this room, this new aquarium. Dusk is slipping in, a sun setting in my head, a fire licking up the soft sheets of our turned down bed. During check-in, I said, thank you to the clerk watching us. What do you know? What do I? Did I not ask for this? Single queen facing south and the trees. Now my love won't touch the ice bucket. She wants to touch me. Her hands hit an invisible wall. She's touching someone else, and I'm hidden behind that person. and small. And then I cannot come. About sacred things we promised to never lie. Her finger slides inside of me, and oh God, I reach until we wear each other like perfect rings. Always I keep praying to some divine, I ask for more than our room key, hot water, or some future home higher than the sea. I hope you can't hear my roommate. You might be able to. Body under another's tradition. Everyone in class pairs up, receives a small baby pig. The scalpel shines like a mirror or water. If you look, you see yourself. Gloved hand pushing a blade to open the other animal's chest. Someone drops a knife, shouts, "Clean it up." This is how we learn to dissect a body, death or the emerging parts, discoveries we bag and hide in a drawer. After class, I go to the rooftop. On so many parking garages, I've waited, seeing treetops, oceans, and coral clouds, once ultimately alone. Isn't it a miracle, the beauty our eyes can unhide? With my hands, I've educated and hurt so many things, and myself survived. We animals hover over a stranger animal, and who interrupts what wants to touch us? Water licks the edges of bayous, bays, gulfs, then rivers, some with bluffs, but in this town, only unbluffed shores. It rises in the streets, creeps closer to the door outside. Water's pouring out like a pinion everywhere. For as long as we're alive, neighbor, if you had no land, how long could you swim before you die? I'm going to skip that one because I want to be mindful of time. Grief. The estuary comes before the bay. It's brackish, not wadeable. A snowy egret stalks through the nighted marsh, pauses to choke up a shrimp dead, days before ever swallowed. The forest of petrochemical towers glow orange before the highway bridge to the beach. A shore dark where men of wars surface. Puffed up sickles so blue and waiting even in death to sting someone. And this slice of moon too new to show you them. Across the sand, catfish bodies, grocery bags. It was a phone call after midnight. That's how you heard. I'm standing on the seawall watching you, or in a bedroom 54 miles inland. Doesn't matter. You swim alone. The water grieves. You float fatherless, and you are all that remains holy. The future. Love was our first child. Let's do the twin poem first. The future, the one you love wants children. Maybe if you and I plant trees, drop post oak seeds in the spaces between sidewalks and streets, grow them tall before the water comes again, converting all these bayou forests into reefs. Maybe we grow them, the fastest tall trees. Imagine lanky willow oaks, their long leaves. Imagine tall enough to live without gills or swimming. Maybe we plant them and branches sturdy, trunks thicken quickly, a ladder a child climbs to escape the sea. How am I doing, Reyes?
You're doing good. Can you do one more and then?
The future, love was our first child. When the tallest grief came converting our love's small animals back into minerals, our willow oaks into reefs, I prayed to some divine, grow us into swimmers, not drowned seeds. Neither of us grew up with mothers inclined towards carrying the recognizable smell of an impending exile everywhere. I could feel grief electrify the old depths of the bayous and lakes in you. Even I didn't see the future you love burying me. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. No, I think you put it really beautifully. Of those who aren't there to enjoy the music anymore, and so I think that was a really beautiful sentiment. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your poetry. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, and finally we have Jose Eduardo Sanchez. How's it going, Jose?
It's going all right. How are you, Reyes?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great.
So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you the same question I asked Aaliyah. Is there any music you've been listening to this year that you really liked, either revisiting kind of music from other eras or any new music you're onto?
Yeah, one of the artists that I've been revisiting that actually inspired part of this performance is Jose Alfredo Jimenez, and he's a Mexican writer born in Guanajuato, which is where I'm from. And so growing up, my grandfather was obsessed with all of his music, all of his songs, and I think that during this time, thinking about gender, queerness, masculinity, pride, heartbreak, all of those are things that bring me back to these small moments in my childhood. So yeah, it's been really meaningful to listen to that, both as an adult now, but also revisiting that relationship with my grandfather.
That's awesome. All right, everyone, there's Jose's info. Do it to it, and then I'm gonna give you the platform. So see you in a bit.
Great. So in thinking about music, I really thought about the way that I enjoy music, and the three things that really came up for me were samples, covers, and remixes. And if you know me, you know that that's a big part of my music library, but also of the way that I understand and initially meet as a song, a new song that I'm enjoying. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of that, a little bit of sampling, a little bit of covers, and a little bit of remixes in poetry. So I hope you all like it. Right. So samples part 1. The karaoke van on 3rd and Berendo, with that song we almost always never recognize. Black Nike high tops pacing on my bedroom roof. Putting duct tape over the mic on the second phone so you could listen. The second one on the dial pad, punching 911. Your phone screen crackling inside your back pocket as you dove into the air mattress after your last night at KPA. The stalling of your lighters, always running out of butane. Annyeonghaseyo, mispronounced 14 different ways. All right. So now I'm actually gonna read an excerpt from a translation that I'm working on. This is from Diana Garza Islas. Her piece is called Que no se llame Asdrúbal. And yeah, I'm gonna read the first half that I'm working on. Delegate head set to sleep, cherry in between, in mouths chosen, already sated, already bruised from that being they tend to invoke. In the synesthetic, post-human levity of the Cinderellic beginnings, you, beneath the wheels of the train, Little paper mache trains atop open heads stained with me. I said mine. I ate from the mangoes. We arrived in the dark and crushing heads. Changed the name of the animals to ask, and how's it going for you? I lost a piece, legs rested on the lady's dashboard. Activate thus the ejection buttons, mine, old, improved, and one more, that if you know it's coming, it already came. To the point where you lift the tablecloth, underscoring your members. Those who will be there, eyeing ourselves, one at the other, forever. The letter, the lamp, the buttonhole. They did not come to tell me my showcase. They did not come to strain the hollow thing, bed, phlegm, engraver, with putrid hands, Meko, with the head inside. My son, many times, to myself. 2 small lines, since, toward, and just because. Had brought the pill, the false hammock, brought the pill. I'm already gone. Oozing heart, me coming almost to tell myself that I'd be more fulfilled without my dolliness, that I'd be prettier, that I'd be younger without my hummingbird. Mueve la colita. Nearly mine, this voice that doesn't hate you. Yes, I told you, Roasted Powder, smoked goat. Come, I miss you, this poem doesn't fit. If I did tell you, Roasted Powder, stay slow. I cut 4 hands in the remains of the flower, cemented, so formal, reputable, given names, negative. All right, so I'm gonna do another little bit of samples. This is samples part 2. Jump in the drop to convert the top. Reciting Gonzalo Arango, but with a Mexican accent. Realizing you were a Tinashe stan. They don't got what I like at Burger King. So this next piece I'm going to read. I grew up in a really small town in rural Mexico, and so for me, the first poetry I ever read were prayers, and the first concert that I ever went to really was Sunday Mass, was Rosary. So I've always been really inspired by both the drama and musicality of Catholic rites. So that tends to come up a lot in my writing. But anyway, this piece is called Intercession. Intercession. Grace is your sin crawling, peregrinating the flesh off your skull, reaching holy ground, breathing, cloud swallowing sanctuary, supplicating. Intercession. Cloud swallowing sanctuary. Grace is your penitence, penetrating, expiating the blood from your tongues, flooding sepulchres, drowning. Cloud swallowing sanctuary. Prostrating. Intercession. Clouds swallowing sanctuary. For 9 days, we offered our body and blood in exchange for the eternal rest, digesting joy, sorrow, glory, luminosity, and other mysteries. Shitting on silk soutans, pissing on chalices, impassive fucking raw promises, and other bad sources of truth illumined me. Grace is your perpetual light shining, rotting the teeth of your soul, burning purgatory, liberating. Cloud swallowing sanctuary, saving. Right. So I'm going to do samples, part 3. The man served pole at Seafood City, holding on to me while you drowned. Nightbirds chuffing over K-Town, and you asking me what Superba means. Broken links on the Indie Exchange Live Journal page, where we downloaded all of our music files. She told me to meet her in Bed-Stuy on Friday, about 4:45. Whataburger, just like you like it. All right, so just a little experiment I tried there with the samples, but to close out, I want to share a piece that is in Spanish. It's kind of an experiment with like a maricorrido. I don't know if that's a thing, but the idea that, you know, as a little queer Mexican growing up in a rural town, again, just going back to those experiences, and how music was both oppressor and liberator in a lot of those moments. But this piece is in Spanish. Even if you don't speak or understand Spanish, I hope that you're able to enjoy it. And I know there will be captions and translations, so hopefully, you know, eventually in the recording you'll be able to get a piece of it as well. And this will be the last piece that I'm doing tonight. Las malas lenguas. Por ahí dicen las malas lenguas que soy mesero sin charola, que no me pidan Coca-Cola aunque les chingue la sed. Por ahí dicen las malas lenguas que me truena la reversa, que en la cena pa' mi postre pido el arroz con popote y siempre con leche clavel. Las únicas malas lenguas que me vienen importando son las que tantas veces por mi culo se han pasado, deslizándose sedientas, casi como sanguijuelas, saboreando los recuerdos de mis sueños evacuados. Que si muerdo las almohadas, que si les sopo en la nuca. No te preocupes, papito, que ¿disfrutas o disfrutas? Las únicas malas lenguas que me vienen importando son las que lamen todito de mi premio cuando acabo. Que si muerdo las almohadas, que si les soplo en la nuca. No te preocupes, machito, que ahí viene la revoluca. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing either, but you made it into a thing, and that's what matters. All right, so everyone, there's Jose's info. I'm going to bring everyone back on to give a final goodbye. So, and there's Aaliyah's info, and then just let's rest on that, and then finally Miranda. There's Miranda's info. So thank you all for being here tonight. If you're tuning in, Thank you so much for doing any number of things you chose tonight to hear these amazing writers. Just want to say thank you all. It's always inspiring to know that I share a city with so many talented, amazing individuals and writers. So thank you, everyone. All right. And so there you have it. This is kind of the final one. I mean, it depends how much money is left over once I run the numbers. I'm hoping to do another reading of hopefully like anime or manga centered. I know we kind of like did that like video games, but I think obviously anime and manga are their own art, and so I would like to do something like that. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe not in the new year, but you never know. It's a year full of possibilities, and so always stay tuned to if there's anything else that's coming up. It's always going to be on this webpage, and if you know me through any channels. But again, follow me on Instagram if you want. If that happens, that's probably one of the first places you'll find out where it will happen. And then finally, I just want to say thank you again for tuning in. And it was kind of like, it's always been a dream of mine to pay people that I respect and admire and love their work. It was a dream to pay them, to feature them, and for you to hear them. So out of the many things that were not great in 2020, I'm glad this at least happened. So thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Have a good night. Have a happy new year. Again, you can revisit this video. This video will be available in English and Spanish captions next week in the following days. So stay tuned. And there you have it. So I'm going to log off and smell you later.